Hi.
Hello.
Welcome to week 12 of CIM151 webinar with me.
To make up for you're all having the day off.
So you're all at the ECA, right?
And you're definitely watching this on your day off, for sure.
Don't catch a cold at the ECA.
Yeah. Perfect. So for today, we are going to kind of speed run you through, I guess, what we'd be doing normally in a class. And obviously, because you're not in a room together, we're not going to have normal kind of peer activities, but we're going to have some form activities that you can work on, and a couple of things to work on kind of in your own time as well. So you can probably already see, we've got the slides up on screen, but we also have the little questionnaire over to the side. You'll have the link to that so that you can open it up and follow along as we go through. But that's kind of what we're going to be assessing you on for this week, pretty much.
That is going to be your, usually you tick it off on your campus online in terms of the during class activities. That's going to be your questionnaire.
Yeah. So you can do it as you watch this and just pause it where you need to fill out extra stuff.
We will guide you through the process.
Perfect mentors. Awesome. Let's have a little look. So, same as per usual, what we're doing today is we're going to have a little bit of a recap on some skill building activities, looking specifically at Project 3 and Milestone 3, and then telling you what to do for next week, which is week 13.
Lucky week 13.
The final one.
The end of the trimester and the final week of your Project 3.
Yeah. So
that's next week.
Everything that you kind of need to have put together and organised for your assessment to be submitted, we'll kind of cover and recap on right at the end so that you know what you got to do for next week.
Yep. Rest assured.
Perfect. Cool. As per usual, we're not going to check them right now, obviously, but we will follow up on your learning journals outside of class time.
Yeah.
And we can give you any feedback that you need, just as normal comms.
Given that it's about week 12, the feedback might be, okay, we're coming up to the end of trimester. Basically, you have until the end of week 13 to get all of your learning journals up to date. So if you've got anything outstanding, now is a good time to have a look at them. And that might be the basis of some of the feedback that some of you may receive.
And also, as a reminder, the learning journals, we get you to do them every week because it's expected that you talk about each of the milestones throughout the project. That's why we get you to do it while it's still fresh in your minds. But when we're assessing it, we actually need to see that you've done the reflections for each of the milestones. So we need to see that if you've missed a week, perhaps in week 11 or week 10, we need to see that that's filled in when we get your final project submission as well. So if you think there might be any gaps, have a bit of a look back through because now would be a good time to do that. Yep. Cool. Awesome. So kind of as I said before, what we're doing today is, you're clearly watching this, so well done. There is a Google form which you'll have access to. The link is in multiple places. It'll be attached to wherever you find this video. It'll be attached to the email where it's been sent out to you. It's everywhere. And what you'll also need is a Google document to be able to take notes in and actually complete some of the activity stuff. This isn't just we're getting you to write something for the purpose of you doing something. It's actually going to build into your project.
This is your milestone 3.
Correct.
Essentially.
Yeah.
So you can use your learning journal, create a Google document within that. However, again, as usual, however you organise that is up to you. Just as long as you've got the stuff in there, it's all good.
Perfect. Yeah. So make sure you've got somewhere to do that. And that's kind of the points where when we tell you to, probably worthwhile pausing this and just completing those activities for 5 minutes and then coming back to it. Cool. Easy. Okay, let's look at this thing. SMART goals.
These were your pre-class activities. You watched a video on SMART goals, which we're all so excited about. What is a SMART goal? It's an acronym. That's an acronym, isn't it? S-M-A-R-T? Yeah. An acronym. Right, nailed it. What does SMART refer to? Just to recap. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely.
Cool.
That's the summary.
That's pretty much it.
That's it.
As an example, so that we can kind of talk about what it is, we found a few different articles, but there was a few that were a little bit more business related. We've pulled out an example SMART goal here, which was available on this business website.
From that link, if you wish to research further.
Which is reach out to 5 influencers per day. So you could potentially see this if you were trying to promote your business, if you were trying to get a little bit of a foot within your creative industries. It especially works within the music industry and arts related industries, trying to contact other people within that industry and build connections, really, so that you could see how this might be valuable to you, but using that SMART framework. Of these guys.
Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely.
Yes. What we want you to do is the very first question on the questionnaire is how to reach out to 5 influencers a day. What we want you to do is
tell us how that is a SMART goal. So you might use the S, the M, the A, the R, and the T. What is measurable about it? What is achievable? How is it relevant? And what is a time frame? Is some of those, do you have clues for those answers within that goal itself? Write them down.
Perfect. Awesome. So you can jot down some answers into question 1 as a relatively simple, straightforward first question for your questionnaire. Cool.
That's our recap of the pre-class activities.
That's it. Awesome. Cool. Okay, so what we have on Campus Online is, as per usual, we've got some during class activities. I'm just going to load up Campus Online to show you what they are right now. Just zoom in so you can see it a little bit clearer.
So under your pre-class tab, you've got, your during class tab.
These ones.
You've got a PDF as usual of your milestones and specifically what you need to achieve for this thing, but if you're doing this webinar, you're hitting it already, aren't you? So there's 2 articles there. You'll see one called Selling Yourself Kinda, and another one, Do You Need 10,000 Hours to Master a Skill?
Cool. So what we're going to get you to do is individually read one of these articles and then fill out the questions on the questionnaire. So if you look over on the questionnaire, you'll actually see that it says choose which article you read. So we want to know which one you're answering the questions in relation to. It's a little drop down there for you to select which one you read, and then tell us a couple of things. One is what surprised you about the article, what was different to what you've heard before, and after reading the article, how could you adapt the making process for your discipline? Now that sounds a little bit weird out of context. You need to read the article to have the information about the making process to be able to answer that question.
It's a well-designed question.
Yes.
You have to read the resource to order to answer
That's the point. So pause this now. Take some time to do that because that's actually going to help you with the steps on down. Great. You're back. Okay. We're in.
It's great.
So
I love webinars. Okay.
It's great. Okay. So what we want to talk about now is emulating your idols and kind of looking to people in the industry. For you guys, you're about to step into the creative industries and you're already starting to do that process now. We've done that already. So we've already gone through that process of wanting to be involved in the industry, having those aspirations, and then
starting out,
yeah,
getting your foot in the door, jamming it in, making it happen, pushing rocks uphill to make these things happen.
Totally.
And we survived to tell the tale.
Yeah. So the thing that we want to do is give you some examples from us personally and talk from our personal experience on what we've kind of done to look at the hard skills and soft skills of people that we admire, and how we've kind of adapted that into our own workflows so that you can hopefully start thinking about how you can figure out who your idols are and start doing that process yourself.
This is a sort of a foundational activity. If you start thinking about this is going to help you with the rest of the activities for the webinar.
Yes, absolutely.
And hitting that milestone.
Totally. Yeah. So yeah, we're going to give you some examples, but if you need to take a little bit of time to think about it, how it applies to you personally, you are in control of your computer. So feel free to do that whenever you want to. Cool. So,
all right. So this is me. Okay. When I was a teenager, I loved a French singer-actress called Vanessa Paradis. So let's have a quick look who this was. Do we have sound?
Yeah.
We do. Okay. So this is this is dating me a little bit, but you know, whatever. I'm going to put a little bit of the sound up a tiny bit so you can hear her singing. All right, I'm going to hit it there because you've got the information you need for me to move on. So, I was a kid and I adored this woman. I thought she was the bee's knees. I thought she was the epitome of almost everything I wanted to be. That song was written and produced by Lenny Kravitz, and I just thought she was incredible. Her style, her sort of both physical costume style and her physical presentation, as well as her musical style. So I pretty much spent hours looking at photos of Vanessa, just staring at them. I studied things that I could emulate. I copied her hair, right? You can see it. Part in the middle. I have actually never really deviated from that since I discovered Vanessa Paradis. That's how influential that has been for me. I would spend hours with a lip liner in my mirror trying to trace the outline of her lips onto my own. And I copied the clothes. If you noticed a nice 70s furry jacket, and you might have also noticed that she had some really nice boots. Nice flowing dress. Some of the hard skills that have definitely influenced me. I also really loved her vocal style, which was very breathy and almost a little girly, and the musical style that was involved in the production of that song and her album indeed. So that's some of the hard physical, almost visual, or the real, the real hard skills of what I emulated. So also some of the soft skills include collaboration, in that she was able to work with someone for the entirety of the writing and production process of an album. That's a soft skill, yeah? She, in order to, I broke it.
Yeah, stop clicking.
In order to actually make all those things happen for the way that she looked, she had to employ critical thinking. She had to merge vintage styling into a contemporary setting. So she had to pinpoint the moments that she liked visually of what clothes she liked, and how she was going to put that together to present herself. That also speaks to deliberate practice. So when you look across her output in that era, there is a cohesive and deliberate style, physically and visually, that matches with the sound and the style. So it's a personal brand. You can see that, you can look at that and go, that's Vanessa Paradis. Another of the soft skills I probably didn't have when I was the age that I was looking at her was self-confidence. So I thought, all right, I'm going to try and be like that somehow. So that's my list down of how I achieved those things. What did I do? I spent hours in the mirror, and what did that do? That trained my soft skills of critical thinking and aesthetics, how to get that look just right. I also spent time trying to find the places to buy the types of clothes that I liked. I practiced singing. This was a long process. This took me many, many years. I didn't jump on stage straight away. I was in other forms of performance before I was a singer. But I slowly joined bands. I slowly got mentoring from a couple of really strong industry sources and learned how to sing, as well as learned how to be in a band, basically. And a lot of that is collaboration. Getting along with people, communicating creatively. Also, I was training in theatre and music and dance because, as many of you know, I'm a burlesque performer. So a lot of that soft skill of confidence was probably honed more on the burlesque stage than it was on the musical stage. And then I found the team to collaborate with, which was my band. So I'm going to play briefly for you the last song that I recorded with my band, which is called Snow, and it was recorded with an SAE graduate who probably none of you will know because he's so old school, but that's okay. It's all in the family. It's a very long intro. I want to cut to the vocals, so I might cut this and get to it. How do I make it? When the fire to the cold, burning blizzard bright on the snow. No luck having for two, where it souls just a yearning for the open road. So, in that brief thing, you can see some of the vocal stuff that I had been practicing since I was a teenager in terms of that breathy kind of sound.
It's giving me like Nick Cave vibes.
Yeah, good. Great. Yeah, that's another of my influences, but that's a whole other story.
Cool.
Cool. So that is, in a nutshell, how and that's reverse engineering the whole process, because I didn't actually at the time go, these are her soft skills, these are her hard skills, and I'm going to make it happen. Through just naturally really liking what someone was doing, I took what I wanted and took how I could adapt myself into something that is influenced by someone else using their hard and soft skills. So I've looked back and identified those hard and soft skills, which you guys have done for the last several weeks. Every time we've approached hard and soft skills, you're used to identifying those things. You can do that for yourself soon. You'll be looking at what skills you've got, what skills you want to have, and how you're going to get there.
Cool. I think it's really similar for most people that get interested in creative industries, and I think that's kind of what all of you guys are doing as well, is you're interested in a particular media, and there's things that have made you interested in this to come to this place, to be able to learn about it. It's being able to identify and actually, rather than just being like, I like this thing because I like it, it's being able to identify the why and then trying to actually come up with a plan. You can just roll through this and you may do some things instinctively, but if you actually think about it, you're going to speed up that process and be so much more active in the industry much quicker. And that's really kind of the purpose of what we're doing here. It's really what you need.
Yeah. We're talking about disruption. So your industry is changing so much. The quicker you can attain the goals that you want, the more able you are to just jump into the industry running, basically. It speaks to deliberate practice, which is one of our transferable skills. That's it in a nutshell.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I've taken exactly the same format as Lola and spoken about mine. I've always loved music. That's always been my key focus, is listening to music, absorbing music, and even from a really young age I was listening to things and finding weird little elements that I heard in songs, like a weird little breakdown or something weird someone did with their voice, and being really fixated by it and really interested in it. And that's kind of what led me to then want to play music myself and also start producing it. I had the intention as a teenager that I was going to be a musician, I was going to be this great famous artist, and I was going to live that life. And then I started learning about the production side of it and actually got way more attached to that than the actual performance side of it at all. But one of the really big influences for me going through my emo teenage phase was Ben Gibbard and his involvement in multiple different bands and different production outfits. You might know him through his work with bands like Death Cab for Cutie or the Postal Service, and also his million other solo projects and other weird indie bands. The one that's listed on there, All Time Quarterback, was one of his first bands, where they did all Sonic Youth covers and really grungy kind of stuff, which is completely different aesthetically to what he does now. But that's kind of what interested me about him, was his versatility and his range of productions that he could work on. And that kind of really interested me. He wasn't locked into being an acoustic singer-songwriter and that's all he did. He did all kinds of weird stuff, and that was what really made it interesting. Just to give you a real brief example, this is the kind of stuff.
It was 100 degrees as we sat beneath a willow tree. These tears didn't care, they just hung in the air and refused to fall. It's so far. I knew.
So you can see with that example, it's kind of an interesting film clip. There's weird mixed media stuff. It's kind of stop motion, but also crossed with film. This is a really key thing for him in also just not being locked into musical styles, but being really adaptive with every other aspect of his productions. Really interesting visual productions, creating mixed media for some of the later Death Cab albums, creating big kind of online phenomena. He created a film clip that if you signed up to their fan club, you would get an access link and you would be able to watch them film live in a single take one of their film clips for their new album. So there's lots of this kind of integration of different media that I think is a really interesting thing.
And audiences. We've been talking about
Multiple.
audiences. So how did he develop his audience?
Absolutely.
Partly by making them feel special.
Absolutely. So having that connection with the audience through specialised marketing tools, essentially. But also having a really broad audience that he can pull from because he's involved in so many different types of production. So a couple of things that I really kind of idolised about him was his kind of guitar playing skills as a basic level thing. He played guitar. I wanted to learn how to play guitar. The performance aspect was he's a quite weird, awkward, nerdy guy to look at. But when he gets on stage, and I've seen them play multiple times as a teenager and now, he's the type of dude that comes completely out of his shell and throws his guitar across the stage and is this really intense personality, which is really appealing to me because it's the type of artist that I want to watch because I don't know what they're going to do next. So that was really exciting. Aesthetics, just from the general band and personally, I think it was kind of like maybe a phase thing, also going through that real hipster emo teenage phase. Everything about kind of the aesthetics of what they were doing, the way that they dressed, their fashion sense was
It's all part of it.
Yeah, it's all part of it.
It's the whole.
I look at what I wear now, even on different days, and I go, oh yeah, that's a very, you know.
That's when I prepared this. I realised that a lot of it was not that conscious of how I can now see my influences.
Just subconscious stuff.
They are.
Uh-huh. And then on a really technical level for me personally is the music production skills. He was always involved as a producer in the recording side of things, creating the visions of the ideas of the film clips and everything else. He's really kind of like the front man that runs the entire project for most of the bands he's involved in. This band is mainly standard rock band, guitars, bass, drums, vocals, but a lot of the other bands like the Postal Service have pretty much all electronic music, and he's also fully involved in that. So he has this wide range of technical skills that I knew that if I wanted to be a producer like him, I would need to pull from these different areas and not just learn guitar. That wasn't going to be a big enough skill for me to actually get to the level that he's working at. The other big things you can see through the film clip, the idea of collaboration, working with multiple different medias, working with different producers. The Postal Service is actually a band made of Ben Gibbard, but also a whole heap of other front people from other big bands.
It's a mega band.
It is a mega band. So it's kind of that collaboration, being able to work with people from different disciplines and within your own discipline to build something. That kind of forces that critical thinking then to be able to figure out how to merge these media and how to make the final product. It's all very deliberate. Every film clip is very unique. Every album art is very unique. And me being a music nerd, the albums are very cohesive, meaning that they've been planned and that album has a sound and a style to it, which he's very much in control of. And that is very exciting to me. And the other thing with the self-confidence, very emotional and raw performance. Not something that I had by any means at teenage years, and probably still something that I think all of us can develop.
I think everyone is always developing
Totally.
their self-confidence.
Totally. But the big thing is that it's a thing that I can identify, and I know that since seeing it in people like him, it's things that I've been able to attach onto myself, and even if it's a slow process, build that process.
You can pinpoint that confidence can be a skill.
Yes.
And you can develop it, and you can set the conditions for it to be there.
Absolutely. So, for how I kind of adapted that for my own work, I predominantly work with indie-esque kind of bands, indie rock, something, sometimes electronic, but they fall generally within that scope. I try and produce creative works which incorporate a DIY aesthetic. What I mean by that is I don't mean that everything is just super rough and sounds like I've recorded it in my garage, but I like doing weird stuff. I like adding weird textures and elements into my recordings. I like going outside and capturing a weird sample of traffic and then putting it underneath a musical song or some other weird little texture. And that's something that's not really a clean pop record producer kind of thing. It's stuff that people who are willing to kind of do creative stuff and push boundaries and try stuff, not just do a thing to get sales for it. That's what I really like, and that's kind of the stuff that I really like from what Ben does. And I also work with teams who have similar references and influences. When I work with any artists, I talk to them about what they want their stuff to sound like, what their goals are, and I try and figure out how to get there. And the best way for me to do that is figure out what our common references are. If they know bands that I know and we can talk in depth about particular songs, it's really useful for me to have that. So that kind of knowing these artists and knowing about people who are highly influential is kind of a talking point when you're working with people in your industry.
And this is actually a really good tie-in with your game changers. So you have been essentially talking about your influences. You've been choosing the ones that appeal to you. You're forging your own path through the industry starting from here by identifying ones that you like. And you will have these conversations in the industry and you'll go, oh, okay, so I identified this person from the past and I liked them. And that might be your past game changer, and you find someone else who is in the same mindset as you, who liked them, and you start to develop that vocabulary together that you can collaborate
That's a really good point. As we talk about this in music a lot. Music, straight up, I know a lot of you aren't music students, but music is a bullshit language.
But you've heard music, right?
You know, you've heard it. Music doesn't have real words because it's not tangible. You look at a piece of art and you can describe a colour.
It is the only art form that does not represent something else.
So the cool thing about that is there's no right or wrong with language. It's a kind of woofy, pumpy bass sound. Cool. I don't give a shit. That's a great description, right? That's fine. So this is where having musical references is really useful because we can talk to each other and go, oh, you know that song from that band? And these are connections that we can have.
Same in film.
Yes.
The directors, the films that you like, that is your shorthand to discussing things. Same in graphic design. The influencers, the designers that you are studying and admiring, other people will know these people in your industry.
Absolutely.
Even when you're going for job interviews in a graphic design company, if you're a graphic designer, they will ask you likely, who are your influences? Mm-hmm. And if you've got shared influences, that's a culture fit with that particular studio.
That's, like you said, it's kind of like a shorthand language. Talking about a director, talking about a producer, talking about a particular artist. That artist, there's probably a deeper reason which we're getting you to analyze why you like them. Right?
And it's fun.
Yes.
It's fun to talk about things you like in the industry with other people who like them.
The key thing is if you're talking about a person that you like, it's their directing style, it's their cinematography style, it's particular things about what they do that makes you attached to them. We can dive down into that later, but if I can have a quick conversation with you and go, oh, you also really like that director and those films? So do I. Cool. Okay, now we already, without even having a big, in-depth, super wanky conversation about it, we already are in the same perspective of what we're talking on. So the breakdown between these is really, really useful for us to be able to just be better at communicating. Just super quickly, because we've already kind of talked about it, in the hard skills and the soft skills for the reasons or the things that I've pulled from Ben Gibbon is things like hard guitar skills, performance skills, the aesthetic, music production, the critical thinking. And what I did then to apply that was I spent hours practicing guitar and trying to learn those skills. Spent the same amount, if not more time for me, using the same sort of recording software and trying to emulate songs. The way that I did that was actually by pulling his songs into my sessions and trying to deconstruct them and recreate them myself. So if I realized that there was 3 guitar parts in it, I'd try and play really crappily those 3 guitar parts, but then figure out all the little elements that built it. So if someone said, hey, I want to build something that sounds like this, I've already kind of dissected it. I know what's in there.
I would suggest almost every single one of you are already doing this.
Yes.
That's why you're
I would
here.
hope so.
Yeah.
I would hope so.
You're already doing this and it's just because you really like the thing.
Totally. Just as a quick little bit to get through the last ones, I spent time finding the places to buy the music and clothes, right? So I kind of copied this off Lola's slide. But this is about building
clothes.
Yeah,
right?
building a network
Yes.
for buying music. I don't want to just keep talking about my life, right? But let me tell you a real quick thing. I constantly, you see me wearing Jet Black Cat related stuff, which is all over all of my clothes. This is a record store that I work at.
Personal branding.
This record store, the reason why I work there is I would be going in looking for indie-esque things to buy for myself, and I was in there regularly enough and talking to the owners, the people that were hanging around in the shop, that then when I found out that they were running events through the shop and running shows, that was something that I wanted to be involved in. I came in, I helped out, I hung out with the crew, and then when they needed someone to run the sound, I'm the person there who has those skills, and now I've been working there for 4.5 years. And going well beyond the skill scope of just running sound for a venue, now I help manage and organise the bands, I help run and run normal shop duties as well. I'm promoting and planning other events for different venues, all as tie-ins from me just trying to find a network of similar people by hanging out at a place that I liked, that was relevant to me, and being like, hey, I do sound stuff, hello, and being the type of person that can get along with these people. This is why when we talk about transferable skills, we're not just saying we want you to not be a dick for class purposes. It's for your work purposes, so that you can build connections and actually have those life skills. So important.
I'm going to jump in with a story about networking because I like it, right? One of my assumptions about networking and finding your group of people that you connect with, which helps you get jobs, which is also how I got this job, it happens organically through you following your nose, which I've been telling my class especially, for all of your choices with your game changers, follow your nose. So I went, one of my first big trips overseas, I think it was my second big trip overseas as a burlesque performer, as a baby burlesquer. I was in a meet and greet, industry meet and greet in Hollywood, in a nice Hollywood bar called the Bigfoot Lounge in LA. And I was completely jet lagged, stepped off a flight, my eyes feel like concrete, and I'd managed to get myself dressed and I was there. And I was like, okay, it's a meet and greet. And I got there and I was like, oh, it's a networking thing. I'm tired. I'm really young at the time. I'm shy. I now have to make friends and be all outgoing. So what did I do? I went and set up the back and sat and watched everyone. And I got chatting to the other quiet girl up the back who was also hiding. What did we do? We started bonding about how these things are awkward, and I was like, I'm jet lagged, I'm from Australia, I don't know anyone. She ended up being the most powerful person in the room at the time, maybe not the most powerful, but a very powerful person in the room. And she, does anyone know the Suicide Girls? Yeah, you know how you have to apply to be a Suicide Girl? She emailed me a couple weeks later and offered me a Suicide Girl spot.
Amazing.
I turned it down for multiple reasons, because stuff and things.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show, don't feel that networking and finding people has to be this outgoing and pushing yourself into something that you aren't. You can develop self-confidence, but
you don't have to be the loudest one at the party.
Yeah, so it's that not being a dick. But it's also, you don't have to sort of push yourself in ways that you're not. You follow your nose.
Totally.
And you'll find the people that help you that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. The only other thing on here was just talking about the need for problem solving and developing my own skills through that. Was I started playing around with, based on looking at their film clips and their own kind of DIY videos they make backstage touring things. I would take whatever dodgy little camera I had at home and take videos and photos, and then pull in whatever the free software on my computer was and try and muck around and edit it. I had no idea what I was doing, but I knew I wanted to do it. I also knew I needed to learn the audio software skills. As a teenager, I didn't have access to buy that software, but I managed to find that we had some at my high school, and I managed to convince my music teacher that I wanted to be a music teacher, and I wanted to use my work experience week to just play around and learn this software.
And they let you.
And they let me. And it was fine. And then now I work with that software every day. But you don't have to do that. The idea for me is I knew the skills that I wanted to learn, and one of the things that helped me to realize what that was listening to these people and looking at these people that I admire and I was involved with and I followed them and I wanted to see what they were doing. I naturally kind of fell into the rhythm of going, I want to try that. But for you guys, you're already trying it. You're already here, right? You're already 6 months into this. What you need to now identify is if you can actually break these down to key skills, you can speed this process up rather than fumbling through it for 8 years like I did, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So this is a process where it'll help you massively, and that's kind of the point.
And it's about really relating these skills to the stuff you're interested in, because we can talk till we're blue in the face about the abstract hard skills and soft skills and what is a hard skill and what is a soft skill. Where it really comes alive is exactly how it's going to relate to you.
Yep, exactly. Cool. Okay, so the next little bit, now that we've talked about us enough,
enough of that.
What you need to look at is there are a whole heap of organisations that are designed to be able to help you to move forward in your industries, to find the tools that you need to push forward. Yes, there's a whole heap of stuff that you can do. You all have access to the internet. That is a massively helpful tool. But that aside, there are actual industry bodies designed for each discipline that are designed to be able to help and assist people in lots of different ways. It varies depending on what they do, but we want you to become familiar with them. There are a selection that are available for the music industry that are kind of like our big national governing bodies of music production and making sure that everyone's rights are kind of in order and that type of thing. You can research that and figure out who they are without me telling you the answer. But what we want you to do is for your discipline, we want you to be able to have a little bit of a look online, do a bit of a Google now, and try and find one or two main industry bodies that you could join, that might be something that is useful.
Follow on Facebook or social media, if Facebook's a bit uncool these days, whatever the platform is that you can follow them on, and you'll get the updates about how you can be supported through the industry. There are ones for film. There are national, there are state ones. There are ones for graphic design. There's a big national one for graphic design. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but they're there. I'm sure there are ones also for games. It's less of my area, but
There definitely are.
there are.
Yeah, there definitely are.
Find them.
Find them. So with using the quiz, which you can see over here, what we want you to do is list at least one. You can do one. If you can do two,
is great.
Even better, right? Tell us what they are in the answer over on this question and link where their website is. So tell us where we would find, if I wanted to look them up and find all the information about what that organisation does, give me the URL to that as well. And what we also want you to do is the question below that is actually answer to us, what do they assist you with? Because there's going to be different bodies that do very specific different tasks. We want you to give us the answer on exactly what they do for you and your discipline, and how does it help. That's the main thing.
Cool. How can they help you?
Yeah, perfect. Take a minute, pause this, do the thing. Great. Moving on.
Hi, you're back.
Hello, welcome back. Cool, okay. So this is the practical part where you're going to use your Google document to fill out some information.
This is the real guts of the milestone. This is the deliverable thing that's going to help you to complete your milestone, which in turn is going to help you complete Project 3.
Perfect. This is the thing that you're going to end up incorporating into your final project. So it is something that you want to spend a little bit of time on and do properly. So what you're going to do is, our job now, as it says on here, is we're going to get you to start to bridge the gap between your present self and the creative practitioner that you want to be. So looking forward for yourself in the industry, what skills do you want to have? What skills do you actually need to be able to move forward in the industry?
You can base this a little bit from last week's resume stuff, where you did start to identify the skills that you currently have.
Yeah.
So you can start with that. What have I got right now? What do I want to have? How am I going to make them happen? It's the what, so what, now what that you're all familiar with from your reflections.
Slightly reformatted.
Yeah.
So we're going to say what skills you want to have, what skills you currently have, and what can be enhanced for the future, or essentially, really, I think a better way of looking at it is probably the example that we have next.
A visual.
A visual.
Yeah.
Here's a table, right? So the skill that you want can be a big and broad skill. It can be a non kind of narrowed down skill, but just a big overarching goal. So if that's...
This is mine. I want fly.
Lola wants to fly.
That was my example.
Perfect. So what we looked at then was, okay, if you want to fly, what skills do you currently have that might assist with this project? The first thing that I suggested was ambition, which I think we
have
agree.
that.
You got it. That's fine. You have reading skills.
I can read.
Which is going to help you with research to be able to find the skills that you need to be able to fly properly. And you've got basic motor skills, which you know is going to be a hard skill that you're going to require.
So I can drive a car, right?
Perfect. Halfway there. We just need to get it in there. So what we would need then is to build on that for specific skills that Lola would need to be able to acquire this skill that she wants, is she'd need to have advanced and very specific motor skills,
right,
to be able to have the option for flying.
For flying my private jet, right? It's not like driving a car exactly, so it's a refiner of skills. I don't necessarily know some of the details of them, but I've got a plan for how I'm going to train them.
Because the skills that you do have include research and reading skills.
Exactly.
You're fine. And then once we develop those core base level skills, then we need to go into specific skills of flight training. Now, obviously this is very weird as an example. But it's fine, right? If I was to give you just
it's an extreme example.
Totally. If I was going to give you one off the top of my head, right, for me, if I personally, something that I actually want to develop is more advanced skills with electronic recording software. Electronic music, like dance music production software, which is something that I normally record rock bands. So I know a little bit, but I don't know enough. So if I looked at the skills that I would want to be able to use the electronic software like Ableton. Doesn't matter if you don't know what that is, software for making dance music. Skills that I have skills in other software, I have recording studio skills, I have basic understanding of the industry, I have a basic understanding of the genres and styles, but the skills that I need to have a much more in-depth knowledge of those genres and styles and how those songs are built so that I can have a plan in place to be able to make it. I would also need to have very specific tool skills on how to use that software, and those specific things I could go into much more detail in breaking down all of the really key things. That would be things like programming electronic drums, creating my own synthesizers, doing all of these other little elements, which would all be skills that I need. So
this is stuff you're already doing in your discipline classes. You know what you need to learn to get to where you want to be. You know what you're doing. You know what you've already got. So you're just putting it all together.
That's pretty much it. So this is where you're going to take, just back to the previous slide, you're going to take a Google document and you're going to create a table like this and you're going to list out these skills. So this isn't on the form, it's something that you're doing in a separate document so that you have access to that all in one spot and you can incorporate it into your journals and for final submission. For
Milestone 3. Look at this as milestone 3 in your learning journal.
Exactly. Cool. So to add this to Project 3, this is what we said.
This is for next week. So this is the end of week 12 now. We're almost at the end of our webinar. So next week is, congratulations, week 13. It's also that week where we bring in our stuff to share with our peers and get feedback on Project 3. So Project 3 has been a little bit different, right, to Project 1 and 2. Let's have a look at how we can put it all together. So in milestone 2, you identified where your industry is going. Today, you've identified the skills that you want to have. You've also created a timeline from your industry back in milestone 1.
Yep.
And you're going to put it all together. So it's your job now to find what is needed for you to bridge the gap between your current knowledge and the future requirements of your industry. So a lot of the stuff we did last week on what's going to happen in the future. What are the skills? How is AI going to change my industry in the future? Have a look at that. You're bringing it all together, and you're going to summarise it in a written form. Most of you guys on the Brisbane campus in our classes have selected to do a written form.
Yeah. If you're outside of that scope and you are doing a slightly alternate submission format, that's fine. You're still going to need to synthesize this information in one way or another.
Yeah. Bring a draft for next week. Put it all together, but remember those key things. Your timeline, your stuff from milestone 2, which was about identifying trends possibly for the future. You also did a resume in milestone 2. You can bring that in as well. That's great because you're identifying your immediate future and how you're going to present yourself. And also today, which was all about how am I going to get to where I want to be.
Perfect. I've just noticed in here, as an FYI, all of the things that Lola just listed are meant to be listed under here. We forgot to do that.
We almost got there.
We almost got it. Timeline and all the other stuff that you just said.
You can click through your milestone tabs in Campus Online to refresh.
You can go through it. And if you've got questions, let us know.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because it was very clear in terms of how we would structure the milestones into our submissions for Project 1 and 2, and I probably gave you some really clear structures and things like that. This one is a little bit more synthesis in that you are synthesizing Project 1 and 2 and you are projecting yourselves into your own personal futures and the future of your industry at large. So it's requiring a little bit more adaptability, flexibility, critical thinking, problem solving. How are you going to present this information in a written format? That's your challenge.
That's it.
Yeah. Bring it for next week.
Awesome. Just as 2 final little notes, you obviously need to reflect in your journal. As per usual, you can reflect on what we've done today and what you've done in the form. Please make sure that once you complete your form, you do submit it as well. It needs to be submitted.
And we can see it and we can tick you off for that during class activities thing, that you've actually completed milestone 3, which is something that we need to do and you need to do. So help us out. There is a self-assessment under the weekly schedule in Campus Online, that weekly schedule tab, which is the list of everything. This is something for you to do. That's it. It's up on the screen. This is something for you to do. Just go right down as a self-assessment. It's like, this is where I think I'm at. It helps us to get a gauge for where you think you're going, and we do take it all into account. It's not that you give yourself a grade, but we do take into account. It's interesting to see how you feel that you're going with this, because we can look at that in the holistic grading.
Totally. Cool. The only other thing is that because it's week 13 and we know that your focus is going to be on the assessment, we're getting you to just think a little bit more conceptually, a little bit big process with the pre-class activities. They're not intense. It's 2-3 minute YouTube videos. Take 5 minutes out of your day and watch them. That's it. But otherwise, standard reflection.
Thank you.
That's it. If you got any questions, let me know. Goodbye.